welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lens. We are kicking off year 10 of Behind the Lens today. I can't believe it. I can't believe I've survived this long. I can't believe publicists and talent have been generous enough to sustain the show with their personal, with coming in studio, calling in live consistently week after week after week. I appreciate you all so much, and I appreciate those that... Pam's playing. I think Frank Meyer has inspired her to play now with sound effects. This could be a bad thing in the future. But I'm thrilled that we are still here. On Mondays at 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on AdrenalineRadio.com. And it is a joy. It is a joy talking to each and every director, producer, talent, actors, cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, composers, authors, recording artists, sound effects, visual effects. We have talked to hundreds upon hundreds of people as we start our 10th year on Behind the Lens Radio Show. I am just thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And in case you don't realize it, yes, I am Debbie Elias, the creator and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with all those movers and shakers, the film and TV makers. And I just rattled off some of the artisans that we speak with. And today is going to be no different. You know that our regular listeners, those that have popped in every year and again, I was hoping that my original co-host, I can't say enough about Greg Srizavonsky and Chad Anthony Miller. Chad, an accomplished actor, he's now in Texas and does a lot of theater work. Greg is still bouncing around here. We were just on the phone the other week during a virtual press day and doing all the chatting in the hospitality suite. Greg is absolutely wonderful, and please, if you get a chance, check out his site, Deepest Dream. He does podcasts, he does reviews, he does podcasts with a couple other guys, and they do reviews and things like that. And then, of course, Greg does a lot of virtual interviews, and he uses Zoom so you can see faces. I do not use Zoom, so you just get audio with me. But Greg was there at the very beginning. He is a good friend, and I wish he was here with me today to kick off year 10. And Chad is just goofing off in Texas, being very dramatic on stage, I am sure. But today, you know that every year on the anniversary of the show, I try and have a really incredible guest. Well, this year is no different, because joining me at the midpoint of the show is Academy Award winner Tom Schulman. I'm a big fan of Tom's work. You know him best as a writer. Dead Poets Society, for which he won his Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. He is also responsible for Welcome to Mooseport, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, What About Bob, and one of my favorite Sean Connery films, Medicine Man. He is back with us now. He's been kind of absent in the cinematic arena for a while, but he is back now with a potboiler, Double Down South. And what a film it is. Writing and directing, this is his first directorial since 1997. He's kept us entertained with his pen and paper, but now he's back in the director's chair. And what a film it is. I am so excited that Tom's going to be joining us at the midpoint of the show. I can't wait to speak with him. But first, I've got my exclusive pre-recorded interview for you with writer-director Bill Oliver, talking about Our Son. This is a powerhouse of a film. It stars Billy Porter and Luke Evans and a very young Christopher Woodley. Billy and Luke play parents, a gay couple, Gabriel and Nikki, and Christopher plays their son, Owen. And while they seem to have an idyllic life, they don't. Envision this as a Kramer versus Kramer for the 21st century. It's a beautifully shot film. There's a painterly realism to it. Luca Fantini is the cinematographer. Zach Clark and Tyler Jensen edited this. Ola Flodum has composed an amazing score. The end title song is a duet by Billy and Luke, and I think Billy wrote it. But if the film focuses on fatherhood, family, divorce, Billy Porter, award-worthy from beginning to end. He is the heart of this film. This is only Bill's second film. He co-wrote this with his collaborator Peter Nikowitz. The two of them also did Bill's first feature directorial, Jonathan, that starred Patricia Clarkson and Ansel Elgort back in 2018. It's a beautiful film. There's an emotional beauty that is palpable. So without any further ado, take a listen to my exclusive interview with writer-director Bill Oliver talking Our Son. Hi, Bill.
Hi.
What a beautiful, beautiful film you have given us with Our Son.
Thank you.
I didn't know what to expect. I certainly did not expect Billy Porter to be the standout that he is in this film, in such a different role for him. He is the heart and soul of this film.
Yes.
Just absolutely outstanding.
I agree.
Even Luke Evans, you really do not like his character of Nicky. He's very set in his ways, and he really isn't seeing the big picture. But then he has such an arc that really does a total turnaround in the third act after the beach day. Just outstanding from Luke as well. You brought it all together so perfectly here. This really is, it's like a Kramer versus Kramer 21st century story, but with the overreaching arc being fatherhood. And the way that you and your co-writer, Peter, have crafted this is so well done. I just can't tell you enough about it. It really is wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Where did the idea for this story arise? Because this really is the first film we have seen with gay parents going through divorce. And it's just as contentious as with any other divorce out there.
Right. So my writing partner Peter and I, we wanted to make a film about our community, the queer community, and we weren't sure what to do, and we wanted to make something of the kind of film that we like to see, which is this kind of movie, which is sort of about the everyday lives of people that people can relate to. And, the idea of divorce is exciting. Like you said, we hadn't seen that before. And with the right to marry comes the right to divorce. It is a right. And we felt like that was exciting. It could be a first. And, but divorce also just gave us an opportunity to just really show a family and in an intimate way going through this transformation, because divorce, is terrible. It's loss, but it's also change, and it brings into relief those things we sometimes take for granted, like our relationships with our partners, our children, our families, our friends, and it forces Nicky's character to become the father he needs to be, and forces everyone to show up for each other when they may be taking each other for granted. So it was a great opportunity to make a very intimate film just about the lives of this particular queer family, which was our goal.
And the beauty that very subtly show us, they're each having to put the mirror up to their face and see themselves for who they are. I really appreciate how you did that. And the beauty of this entire film is that it doesn't just appeal to, it's not just for queer families, anybody else in the LGBTQ community. This is relatable to every demographic out there. Everybody, it's a very human story. Everybody goes through this.
Right. I mean, that was kind of the message of the movie, really, that we're all human, you know, and we embraced that. You know, we wanted it to speak to as wide an audience as possible, and you know, I think it wasn't politically motivated, but I do think movies, you know, can change people's hearts because, you know, even though these are fictional characters, we get to know them, we empathize with them, and we kind of, you know, we understand, we learn some things about the community, but we feel for them in a universal way. So that was definitely, you know, one of the goals as well.
And of course, at the heart of this, beyond the parents, is the child. And Christopher Woodley is dynamite as young Owen. He is incredible. And I like that you really include his perspective in there in some key scenes. Walking away from the refrigerator, there's no food in the house. You have to go shopping. And, you know, moments like that, and the sadness. Christopher can turn on a dime, going from sad or looking pissed off, as only a child can do, to then being ebullient when he sees Gabriel show up somewhere. He is fantastic, but you never let us lose sight of the fact that there is a child in the middle of all of this. And I think that's so important in your story dynamic.
Yes. Christopher was amazing, and you know, we saw so many kids, and who were all great, and he just stood out to me and to Billy and Luke as Owen. And he's so natural, and we wanted a kid that just seemed like a real kid. That was our main goal, because you know, it was important to me that audiences just believed these characters exist, which they do, and so that realism and that naturalism was the main quality I was looking for with him, and he's just so charming and sweet and adorable that you feel for him.
Oh, every second of the film, your heart's breaking for him that he's the one that's caught in the middle. Anybody that knows people going through divorces with children, it's always the child that you feel the most for, because there's nothing they can do, and they're just victims of circumstance. And you really brought that idea home with the judge in the divorce proceeding. That really, I think, was so important to bring that in to this story, which leads me to the tonal balance that you have, the emotional tonal bandwidth is so well done. How difficult was it to find the emotional beats and balance them throughout this film, and to do it visually?
Yes, I mean, we knew, you know, we when we wrote the film, we wanted to, you know, put our hearts on our sleeves and really not be afraid of showing emotion and infusing it with emotion. But we also didn't want it to be a downer or depressing. So we you know, flexed it with moments of humor and lightness and warmth and love. And so that, we wanted, again, it's sort of, we wanted it to just reflect life, which has the full spectrum. And so many movies kind of are sort of overly narrow. They're just purely comedic, or they're just incredibly bleak and depressing. And to me, that always frustrates me, because that's just not how life is. And especially in moments of difficulty or times of difficulty, we use humor to cope. So that was sort of a salvation for everyone both on the set and for me making the movie, that we knew that if, after filming a very intense emotional scene or a fight scene, that, the next day we would have a scene that was a dinner party or something lighter. And that kind of got everyone through it.
I have to commend you, your work with your cinematographer, with Luca Fantini. And you have really used framing to the best advantage with telling this story from a visual standpoint. You and Luca stick with your mid shots, but you go wider in the third act with the beach, with the park scene. We really, as the worlds are expanding, as people are opening their eyes and their hearts. Otherwise, you keep it pretty tight. Everything feels like a close-knit family, but you slowly start pulling apart. Instead of Gabriel and Nikki being together in the same frame, we start seeing the camera blocked so that one is like slowly moving out of frame, and we can visually see the distance, the emotional distance. What were your conversations like with Luca to come up with this visual design, the visual grammar?
Yes, he's amazing, and I interviewed so many cinematographers for this film, and I'm a planner. I like to, with my first film, I storyboarded everything and worked it all out in advance, and I knew for this film that I wanted there was going to be all about their performances, and I wanted to be a little bit freer and just really respond to what they were giving me, rather than making them hit certain marks or, have absolutely perfect framing. So I was talking to a lot of cinematographers who were like me and planners, and they were having great ideas. And then I finally met Luca, who is Italian. He grew up in Italy, and he was, as a teenager, he shot and edited wedding videos for his father's wedding video business. And then he became a wildlife photographer, kind of a world famous. So he is, his specialty is capturing the fleeting moment, that moment that's never going to happen again, which is what I wanted from this film, because I wanted it to feel like it was just unfolding, like we're just witnessing life unfold. So he shot most of the movie himself with this sort of body camera rig that he had the camera on. And he was like, it was like an umbilical cord with the actors. He would move with them, and it was like a dance. It was really incredible, and they loved it because they were free to move about and do what they wanted and just be in the scene. But he's also an artist, and his compositions and lighting are beautiful without very much equipment at all, because we've mostly used available light, partly budget, but also partly we wanted, again, the actors to feel like they were in a real home without seeing like a bunch of lights and cables everywhere. So he's just a magician at that. And thank you for appreciating that sort of progression, because that is something we talked about. We wanted it it's a very interior movie, but we didn't want it to feel claustrophobic. So it does open up as the characters are opening up, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because we get the whole, all the friends together at dinner, all the friends together on the couch as they're kind of talking to Nikki, and it's like, well, you need to think about this, and we get that intimacy that very much speaks to the idea that you can choose your family. You don't necessarily have to have the ones that you're blood related to. You can choose your family, and we really get that familial sense and support system that comes through with the camera work. And I just really appreciate that you and Luca put so much thought into that. Talk to me about the color palette. This is a very subdued color palette. We really don't see a whole lot of color until that third act. What were your thoughts in the color palette, particularly in terms of working with the production design within Nikki and Gabriel's house?
Yes, so with the production designer and the costume designer, we talked about using texture and color a lot to create kind of a coziness or an intimacy, like you said. Intimacy was sort of the key word for everybody. That we just wanted to feel like a closeness, and that the audience, could just reach out and touch them and hold them and give them a hug. So we talked. So there's a lot of texture that we tried to bring in to the scenery and to the costumes, and my costume designer Aubrey is so genius with color, and he brought in a lot of references to sort of like queer history that you don't even notice, but that was his inspiration. And I think the colors are beautiful. I wanted it to be colorful without being sort of too garish or overly colorful. So it has this sort of beautiful kind of muted color palette. Like we talked about a painterly realism, I think we called it, which is, it was important to me that this family and this world seem real, that the audience believe they exist, because they do, but also to elevate them through beauty. So we had a sort of painterly realism approach that we followed.
I mean, it looks beautiful, and I like the fact that color, eye-popping color, we get in Owen's room. Like any kid, there's color popping, be it in the room, in the house, the family house, and then in Gabriel's apartment. And that beautiful, who did that beautiful mural on the wall in the bedroom at Gabriel's apartment? That is just stunning.
Yes, that was someone in the art department. Yeah, they created that sort of woodland scene. That was great. Yes, we wanted to, again, and that was a gesture from Gabriel that we thought was in character, that he would try to make it, as nice as possible for his son going through this.
And what's so great with that mural also, you've got animals in there that normally would not be getting along, but all the animals are getting along. So really nice subtext happening there, Bill.
Yes, thank you.
How challenging was the editing process on this one?
The editing process, I mean, it was, it's always challenging, for me, because you go into the editing right after shooting, which is difficult, even if you take a little bit of a break to sort of shift gears and put on the other hat and try to, I tend to see all my mistakes, and then, it takes me a while to let go of the shoot and really see it, because it starts over really when you get to the editing room, and you're crafting it all over again. And it was about, really, to me, the goal was to, was the performances, to really shape them so that they felt full and satisfying and equally weighted and balanced, and also that the tone, hit the right note, that it wasn't too sad or but it also went there. It went to, that we did hit the pain, because that is part of divorce. You do go through hell and come out on the other side, hopefully. So we worked a lot with music in that regard too.
Speaking of your music, number one, I think the end credit song that Billy and Luke did is fabulous. It's so beautiful. And their voices complement each other so well musically. But your score, it's a very subtle score that you have here. It never overpowers anything. And again, it lets the performance dictate what's happening versus the music leading you into, oh, okay, they're going to be mad. Oh, somebody's going to cry. What were you looking for musically from your composer, Ola?
Yes, I mean, he is a composer that I've loved for so long, and I listen to his work while I'm writing. And, you know, it's one of those dream composers that you never think you can get until you ask. And then I did, and he said yes. And he scores, he's Norwegian, and he hasn't done too many American films, but he works a lot with the director, Joachim Trier, The Worst Person in the World, and another movie I love called Louder Than Bombs, which is an English language film. And his music just has this sort of magical fairy dust quality of being, there's a sadness, but there's also a brightness and a sort of like, you know, what's happening is almost kind of spiritual, like, you know, what is happening is so deeply human that his only commentary is just kind of ceremonious, like, almost. So I didn't have to talk to him too much because he, by his nature, just fit what I wanted so well. And we had a quick turnaround. So, you know, he would send me cues and I would make very minor adjustments to it. But we did talk a lot about where music would go because, like you said, you know, I wanted it to use it pretty sparingly and not, you know, overdo it with the music because that's just something I hate in movies. And yeah, thank you for Billy wrote that song before we even started shooting, just inspired by the script, and then before even Luke was involved, I think he wasn't even aware. He knew that Luke sang, but no one knew that they would sound so good together until they did.
Their voices meld so perfectly. When they're speaking, they're very distinct and separate, but musically in that song, they're right there on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, it was just another one of those magical things that happened just very quickly, and it just worked, and it's a testament. I mean, at that point when they recorded the song, they had, you know, they didn't know each other before making this movie, but as soon as I got them together, you know, there was chemistry there, and that's something you worry about as a director when you're casting romantic leads. You don't know, and I was just so lucky that they just had such great chemistry, and then so that just carried through into the song when they recorded it, and it was like half a day. It was just not.
Only taking half a day for a song is miraculous in its own right, Bill. In today's world.
I don't know exactly. I wish I was there because I would have loved to have seen them do it. But I saw them perform it live at our Tribeca premiere, and of course I've heard it so many times. But it's really beautiful, and it's coming out at the end of the month on Billy's album.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I will be on the lookout for that. So now
he just released a new album, but it doesn't have it on there now, but it will have it. It'll be released as a single, I think, on December 29th, and then included as part of the album at that point.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful to hear. Now,
yeah.
I got a last question for you here, Bill. You know, second feature film under your belt. Out there, everybody is going to get to see this now. What did you learn about yourself as a filmmaker and a storyteller in making Our Son that you can now take forward into your future films?
Yes, I mean, like I was saying before, you know, with my first film, I was so, you know, kind of over-prepared and just wanted to make sure everything was perfect. And with this film, you know, I wanted to kind of challenge myself to have a little bit of a looser style. I mean, you always have to prepare, but then I learned to let go a little bit more of that preparation and to be in the moment and respond to my collaborators. And that's something that I really enjoyed. I discovered that I really enjoyed that, and I want to continue making films that way, and I want to continue making these kinds of films. I also discovered that this is sort of my sweet spot of just sort of the kinds of stories I want to tell, which are these stories about really these sort of slice of life stories about the everyday lives of people.
Mm-hmm. I had seen your film, Jonathan, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I really liked it. But this one, I see your growth as a filmmaker, your growth as a director and storyteller with Our Son. I cannot wait to see what you do next, Bill.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Bill, thank you so much.
You too. It was a pleasure. Great questions. Thank you.
And that was my exclusive interview with writer-director Bill Oliver, co-writer with Peter Nickowitz, Our Son. It is out now. I know it is also on Spectrum, so you can watch it there. I highly encourage you to see it. It's an extremely well-done movie. It really is beautiful from an emotional standpoint and from a story standpoint. And focusing on a perspective we haven't really seen before. Two fathers engaged in divorce and a child in the middle. So, now, we're going to shift gears here, and he's already on the line, so I'm going to bring him live. And a big, big hello to you, Tom Schulman.
Hello to you, too. How are you?
I am so thrilled to have you on the show and be speaking with you today. I am.
Oh, well, thank you. That's
I'm
awfully kind.
Such an admirer of your work. To this day, still, you put the pen to paper, along with your co-writer for one of my favorite Sean Connery films, Medicine Man.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't care how many times I've seen that film over the years. I can pop that in my VCR. Yes, I have the VHS tape.
Wow, that's
and
great. Thank you.
It just, you never cease to engage me, be it for a film like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something like Welcome to Mooseport, or, of course, your Oscar-winning Dead Poets Society. You always, I know if your name is on something, I'm going to like it. And,
you're so kind. Thank you.
And now,
appreciate that.
we haven't heard from you in a while.
I know.
But
I know.
I'm so glad you're back with Double Down South. Tom, this movie, this is a potboiler. It is razor sharp characters. The dialogue is perfect. Steeped, and the whole film, it's steeped in the idea of a poorer old South.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I know where you shot it in Madison, Georgia. Madison, it's anything but a very poor area.
That's right.
Outside Atlanta, most of the homes there go close to the $500,000 range.
Yeah, you know it. It's true.
I know the area, and even I think the cost of living there, it's 3% higher. Than most of the country. 5% higher than the rest of Georgia, I think it is.
Boy, you know a lot about it. Are you from there?
No, my aunt lives further south in Omaha, Georgia. My mother was from Columbus, Georgia. And I have a lot of friends in the area, especially in that suburban Atlanta area, which has now become such a mecca for filmmaking, thanks in large part to Tyler Perry initially with his Tyler Perry Studios. So, which could explain why we're getting, $500,000 McMansions now in the area.
Yeah.
But you found this incredible location with a house that it looks like it has been there since the Civil War. Mm-hmm. It has seen much better days. And so you really steep us in the idea of hustling and pool and the poorer South. And everybody is a redneck, essentially.
Yeah.
There is not a moment I was not steeped in this world, Tom.
That's great.
Where and
that was the goal. So
well,
I'm so glad
you definitely achieved that goal. And who knew there is billiards keno?
Yeah. I knew. I played it when I was a kid, but it hasn't been around for quite a while. But
you're reinvigorating the community with it. You're going to bring it back.
I hope so. It was a pretty diabolical gambling game, as you saw in the movie. So it was banned in many states, and pretty popular for about 100 years, and then disappeared.
It's more dangerous than most poker games.
Oh yeah. Once somebody has control of the rack, they can just keep playing and keep beating you and keep doubling, and it's awful.
And you really made a point, and this working with your cinematographer Alan Cadeo, we really get to see the whole idea and the pain of doubling down. It's like I was clenching my fist as we're on a roll and somebody's controlling the rack, and it's like, hey, double down on the next shot, double down on the next shot. And we see the piles of money, and you're using close-ups there on the piles of money. So we really get the sense of what is at stake here. And it's those little touches that you brought. And this is only your second feature directorial. It's been way too long since you last sat in the director's chair, Tom.
Yeah. For me too, but I'm so glad I got a chance to get back in it.
So where did the whole idea of Double Down South come from? What was the genesis for this?
Sort of two things. One, I had a friend whose brother started a poker salon in his house in right after he got out of college, and he all he did was cut the pot. And he provided a safe haven for everybody who came there. He bought a federal gambling license so he wouldn't end up like Al Capone. He paid off the cops, and when the cops couldn't be paid off in Davidson County, which is where Nashville is, he moved out to an outlying county and paid off the cops there. So and then he got the idea of bringing in big roller, great big name poker players, so that the locals would want to come and play him for high stakes. So it became a very popular place. He put a couple of kids through college, actually, doing that. And so that was one thing. And it was a pretty rough place, by the way. The other was that I grew up kind of a misspent youth playing pool, went to a pool hall in Nashville called 20th Century Pool Hall, and in the back they had this game of Keno. And, you'd go and you'd watch, and if you didn't understand the game, you'd put your dollar up there and wait your turn to play, and then, get taken. Because, the first time I played, I had my dollar there, and the person who was controlling the table, who won, said, okay, you're up. And he broke, and he made a double, and he said, okay, you owe me $2. So I said, okay, and I got ready to shoot. He goes, no, it's my shot again. So he made another double. Now it was $4 I owed him. And I said, wait a minute, this is confusing me. He said, it's my shot again. I said, if you double again, I'm going to owe you $8. And he said, yep. I said, well, I don't have $8. And he said, well, you got that watch you're wearing. I went, oh my God. And he, broke and missed. So I get ready to shoot, and somebody said, if you shoot and miss, it's his shot again, and he doesn't quit until he misses. So you could start all over. And I didn't even get to shoot.
Oh, my God.
Walked away.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I learned the hard way, and then when, no one was playing on the table, us kids would go back there and practice and learn how to play. But, and play at your own peril. Don't play high stakes, and it's a scary game. So, and there was a woman that came in there. I was probably 14, 15 years old, and this woman probably, 20s, and she would play high stakes Keno with those guys in the back, and she was tough and won a lot and so forth. We'd sit around hoping for a glance from her. Never got one, and but that stuck with me. And somewhere in the beginning of the COVID thing, I thought about that thing, and those two ideas came together, and I thought, okay, this plantation house where, they play this game out in the sticks.
Oh, my God. Well, it took you long enough to get inspired to tell that story.
It did. I literally was thinking to myself, I don't really know what I want to write right now, and then, man, that thing just popped right into my head. It's really strange.
Now, as you were writing this, was it your intent to direct as well?
It was, but I write everything as if I'm going to direct it,
Mm-hmm.
and then most of the time it doesn't work out that way. But this time, my friend Rick Wallace read the script and said, "I'm going to produce this for you," and the money came through, and a year later we were shooting it.
Well, you've got a great cast. Kim Coates, the minute I saw Kim Coates was in this, I was like, oh my God. Kim Coates can thrill you and chill you at the same time.
I know.
And
he can be so charming and so scary, both.
And
so
as Nick, he is both.
Mm-hmm.
He is both at the same time. Because you never know which way he's going to fly. He is perfectly cast as the ringleader of this billiards keno
I agree.
endeavor. And then you bring in Lily Simmons as Diana, our female who comes in and upsets the apple cart, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
She is amazing, and watching her go toe-to-toe with Kim, those two, you feel the sparks flying, but it's the kind of sparks that, okay, is somebody going to need bail posted to get them out of jail?
Yeah, or worse.
Or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Igby Rigney, I love this whole idea of you got Nick, you have little Nick, and Igby Rigney, he's just enchanting. He's so sweet.
He's so talented, yeah.
And then, of course, one of my longtime fave character actors, you got Tom Bauer in there.
I know.
Is old Nick. I mean, most people will know him best, I think, for playing Marvin the Maintenance Man in Die Hard 2.
Yeah.
It's just on every level, Tom. I have to imagine that once you get it down on paper, you get this perfectly cast. But part of that casting is you need people who can really embrace and embody the dialogue that you've written, because this dialogue is extremely specific, and not only in terms of what you've written in the story, but to the region. It's very specific to the region. You're not going to find people in Los Angeles who may have a billiards keno hustle going.
Right.
You're not going to have the same kind of vibe. You're not going to have the same kind of dialogue and the back and forth repartee that we see unfolding here. The South has very specific when you're sitting out there on your porch rocking, sipping your sweet tea. There's a very specific cadence and a very specific dynamic to the region.
Mm-hmm.
Did that impact or make it more challenging to find your cast here?
I mean, for me, it was a given once I found them that they were going to be able to do the accents and own that life. We had 5 days of rehearsal. Lily Simmons spent weeks before we started learning how to play pool, really getting good at it. She was good before, but Matt Craven, a friend of mine who's also a wonderful actor, great pool player, brushed her up, taught her how to play pool, and really well. So Kim Coates already a good pool player. But, these guys got with an accent coach, and, I mean, Igby, once he started with that, he did not stop speaking with an accent for months before we shot. So, I think a month anyway. So, they were really dedicated to it. And, I grew up in the South, so I have a pretty good ear for it, and so it was they did it.
Yeah, because and it's not just the accent, but it's the words, the actual verbiage that you have written, and it's just, I felt like I was talking to my aunt on the phone.
Well, as I said, I grew up in Nashville, so I haven't lived there in a long time, but I think that stuff is just ingrained once you grow up in a place like that.
Had you not found the right house or plantation, this would not be what it is. How difficult was it to find that specific house in that area with the woods around it?
It took 8 months. The exterior of the house is in Union, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Interior of the house is in Madison. We found the exterior pretty early on, maybe middle of the summer, and we shot in the winter. But we couldn't take that house, as bad as that house looked on the outside, it wasn't so bad on the inside, and they did not want us to mess it up. So we were stuck with having to find a house where we could use the interior. And fortunately, our producers, Seth and Sarah, knew that house in Madison, and the owner was about to remodel the whole place, so he said, "You can do whatever you want to the inside." So we took him up on his word there. So
everything.
And we couldn't make the movie unless we found that place.
Yeah,
that was really a character in the movie.
The interior of that house is everything, with the peeling wallpaper, with the dirt, the years of grease and dirt, and probably some tobacco spit on the walls as well.
Yeah.
You could tell, just based on the height of ceilings and some of the architecture in there, that you could tell at one point that really was a nice house.
Oh, yeah. It's on a nice street, and it will be a nice house again when Jim, the owner, gets through remodeling it.
It's not often that a filmmaker gets that lucky.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we pushed. We spent, as I said, probably 8 months finding it. So it was, at a certain point, I just thought, well, maybe this doesn't exist, especially at our budget, right? There are plantation houses out there, but most of them are used for weddings and those tours, those sort of things. So they're not going to let you come in and destroy it the way, or bring it down to the way this one looked.
Yeah, I mean, the interior of this house looks like one of those places that if you're taking a tour of, southern plantations demolished during Sherman's March to the Sea, that's right. What this looks like inside.
Yeah.
But it truly is a character. Now, once you have all of these tools, these basic elements in place, you and your cinematographer, Alan Cadillo, what an amazing job you have done. The lighting, the framing. I mentioned, your use of close-ups with the money, so we really understood the monetary aspect of doubling down. Mm-hmm. But with people, with framing, so that everything about this focuses on the characters, be it the house or be it people.
Yep.
What were your conversations with Alan like to come up with your visual grammar for this story?
Alan is, he's a master even though he's pretty young, and we talked about, the jamming the frame with what it was going to be like in those rooms with all those observers, having to have a aspect ratio that would hold a pool table properly. So we were looking at widescreen, anamorphic, and then being how anamorphic. You always have to fill the frame. It's a big frame, but in this case, it would happen just because we're in rooms with all these people for the most part. But it also does interesting things with close-ups and two shots, etc. So it was he said, let's do it anamorphic and also shoot it. The film takes place in the late 90s, so we shot it as if we were making it in the late 90s. So we used the style of movie making they used back then, which helps make it feel like it's in that time, as opposed to a modern movie. But Alan is brilliant, and he's quick. We had a very quick schedule, and he just, amazing kind of speed at setting things up. So we weren't waiting a lot we weren't waiting at all on setup,
now,
lighting.
And how was your lighting for this? Because obviously, since you could do anything you wanted to the house, if you needed to bring in lights, anchor them to walls, I'm guessing you could do that. Or was Alan pretty much sticking with a lot of natural light coming in through? You got a couple of really nice windows set up there.
Mm-hmm. Always, those are our lights on the outside.
Right.
You can't really rely on the sun. So he rigged the outside of the house. Inside of the house was rigged basically with practical lights. And those lights, you just turn them on. I mean, not just because he's adding stuff. He's got reflections. It's all there. But each room is set up so that almost, you light and then you can just move around at will and not have to do too much, tinkering around when you're changing angles and so forth. So it makes it really quick. Alan said, most of the time in movies nowadays, he's trying to get rid of lights. In the old days, you had to pump in a ton of light.
Yes.
Now it's all the frame, the medium is so sensitive that you're trying to eliminate lighting. So, in this situation, it made for really interesting, ways to just pop lights on what we wanted to see and let the rest sort of fall back. And so he's, there's a lot of deep space in there, where you're in one room and you can see back into the other rooms, and so he had lit the other rooms in a certain way, and just, I love the look he got.
The look is fabulous, and of course, as you mentioned, that through look from one room into the other. I got to say, the entry hallway and the staircase that goes upstairs, fantastic. And I love the framing, especially with the staircase, because you go up, you got a small little landing, and it curves up again. Yeah. And we never really, and you've got some great shots where we see the little landing, but we don't see what's going up above there until the camera comes up. So it creates a kind of ambiguity and tension as to, all right, now what's happening?
Right.
And it's not until the camera goes and we get a new POV at, quote-unquote, the second level.
Yep.
Rather than pull way back, point it up, Dutch it up, and just show footsteps and everything going up. So you really keep us in suspense. You build a suspense, and that's something you do really well with this film. This really is a potboiler. The tension builds, and so much of this, I'm sure, comes from your work with your editor, Yang Hua Hu.
Oh, yeah, he's great. And just, he would edit, we'd shoot on a Monday, and I would have the edited scene the next morning.
Wow.
And pretty damn well done, It was like, okay, and anyway, the whole point of that exercise was just to make sure that we had gotten everything the day before and weren't missing shots. And so he would put it together. He'd edit the sound that way. It was just amazing. So I just watched the movie come together that way as we shot. So a couple of times we'd miss a shot or two, so we'd have to go back. But that was why he was there. And when I got back to L.A., I think I got back on a Monday. On Thursday, he had the whole movie edited together.
Oh, my God.
Only about 15 minutes longer than what it is now.
Oh, my God.
I know. He's brilliant.
Tom, when you take time off and you come back, you make a very auspicious return to cinema.
I got very fortunate. My producers were, new, great people, and we just, got lucky they were available and so good.
Now, you mentioned something really important, a very sensory part of this film, sound.
Mm-hmm.
How much of because there is so much sound, You've got a cacophony of voices in the background. You have moments of partying and behaving like fools because they're happy that Diana is moving on and has snookered somebody. But then it's the quiet. We get a lot of quiet when shots are being set up, and then when shots are being made. We hear the cue hitting the ball, and then the ball rolling. We actually hear it roll up on the keno board that is on the pool table. How difficult was it from a sound perspective to capture and to create all of that nuance?
I mean, from my perspective, one of the things that tips, low-budget movies is poor sound. So we really focused in on getting good sound, and also, wanted, again, since the house was this whole place was was a character, wanted to make sure it had a voice, Pool was part of its voice, the creaking of the house, which you hear upstairs a lot, and the dripping of water because there are leaks in the house. We're there, the rain outside, just the sound of people in the other rooms, all that stuff, we really got very careful to try to build that world with sound as well as picture.
You did an amazing job, even to the sound of footsteps going up and down the wooden stairs.
Yeah.
And were it not for the music and the partying, it would have been interesting to hear very courteously. You had your actors in character when they're dancing on the pool table. Anybody that has ever been in a bar or anywhere with pool tables, you stay off the pool table. You do the felt. You don't put glassware on it. You don't walk on it. You don't scratch it with your nails. Anything else. They very carefully and very kindly were dancing on the pool table in their socks.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I thought that was really a cute touch. I got to tell you, Tom.
Yeah. Well, little Nick knew he was going to remodel redo the table, so it was fun.
Now, your score, I find this really interesting. What you have for score, it's moody.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't overpower. It also does not tell us what we're supposed to be feeling. Talk to me about what you wanted musically working with your composer, with Adam Berry.
Yeah, to me, it's all about character. Each character has a little theme in there that, it's not obvious necessarily to the audience, and I don't ever think it should be, but it's subconsciously there are these themes that are, each character has one, and sometimes it's light when the character's relaxed, and sometimes it's tense when the character's not. But, mainly the music is there, to heighten the suspense when necessary. It's used very sparingly, which we discussed, before Adam did it. And then it's there to sort of, give you a sense of the where this place is. It's rural music, Americana music. Kind of borders on bluegrass, but there's a lot of blues in there too, and a lot of the needle drop music, a lot of the source music is from, the blues era, which, and, the 50s and 60s and so forth, and maybe and even before that too, also with the kind of stuff that would have been on an old jukebox that they just bought and put in there.
Oh, Tom's phone broke. We were warned. Okay, so let's see. I don't know if Tom's going to call back. We were warned. He's having an issue with his phone. This is not our phones this time. Pam, I have a number that we can call back. Unless he calls us. I'm going to briefly get off the mic here to give Pam this number. Oh, wait, he's dialing us back. Okay. We were warned in advance, Tom. No worries. Don't worry. We've still been dealing with issues here in the studio since November 13th, when there was no phone service for almost a month.
Wow.
In a radio station. I know.
Unbelievable.
So I sympathize. So, we were warned that your phone might do that.
Yeah,
But
at 30 minutes exactly, and I'm sitting there talking and suddenly going, "Oh, it's dead." You know?
well, I'm watching the clock here in the studio, and I'm like, I'm waiting for the phone to die.
Yeah, I thought I was watching it, and then it just got me when I wasn't paying attention. So.
But that's okay. We work with it. You know,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
I've gone through just about everything possible with being live broadcasting. So phones are just another day in paradise, I guess.
Right. Okay.
But as you were saying about the scoring and the blues and
Yeah. I was saying that the sort of beginning of the discussion was what kind of music would Nick have in that jukebox, you know, and would he even care? You know, he probably just bought a jukebox, or it was there when he got the place, or his father figured out what kind of music they wanted. But most of the time, jukeboxes were sort of programmed by, you know, the people that sold you the jukebox. They put 50 records in there, and it would be from a certain era. And, you know, the 30s, 40s, and 50s just felt like that would be the era, and it would be the blues and country music from that era. So Adam sort of, started there, and I think the original stuff he wrote really felt like it was it just came out of that milieu.
Mm-hmm. Well, because obviously, it doesn't take long for us to realize with Nick that he's not going to spend money to put anything new in the jukebox. It's whatever is there is there.
Right. And the jukebox is basically broken. You have to lift it up, put a record on the little turntable in there, and play it. There's no...
Yeah.
And been repaired in 25 years, probably.
If that.
That's
So,
right.
Now, was there any kind of learning curve for you when you got back in the directorial saddle again? Or was this just muscle memory just kicking right back in for you?
A little bit of both. I made a short about a year before this, you know, just to sort of get back and you know, play around, so one day shoot and you know, get used to it again. And but you know, I did all the, you know, sort of preparation and so forth, so I just felt ready. It was wisely or unwisely that I felt ready.
So now, after you're back, the film, it's coming out.
Yep.
And I'm so excited for people to get to see it. What was the most challenging aspect of bringing Double Down South to life once you finally decided to tell this really great story, mind you, after so many years? But what would you say was the most challenging aspect for you, be it from a directorial standpoint or writing standpoint, to bring this to life?
I would say it was the schedule. You know, it's always the schedule, I think. But in this case, we didn't, you know, have a lot of time to shoot this, so it was all about being totally prepared. So, you know, and I mean, it's boring, but sleep, you know, getting enough sleep is always a challenge. And you know, the first movie I made, I never got more than 4 hours, and it exhausted me. In this case, the same thing, but I was only tired one day. And you know, we had 2-day weekends, and you know, I'd go back from on a Friday night and go and Saturday morning, get up at 6 in the morning and spend, you know, 18 hours planning Saturday, 18 hours planning Sunday, and you know, start shooting again on Monday. And this in spite of the fact that I had prepared for months before we were shooting. So it's in constant, you know, tweaking and rewriting and, you know, revising dialogue and playing around with characters and story. You know, just it's, someone said it's like playing chess with the universe, and it's kind of true, you know. But in this case, the universe did not, you know, the rain didn't kill us. We didn't have, you know, electrical storms that shut us down. We only had one case of COVID, and that person never showed up on the set. So we, you know,
wow.
I think we administered 3,000 tests and only one positive. You know, just we were really lucky. schedule is the challenge for me. And just getting all the blocking and everything done right, in time and with those pool tables and so forth.
Yeah, because with that blocking, that had to take time, which speaks to Alan as a cinematographer, because those are not big rooms.
No, it was.
Those are small, like what would be like a parlor room.
That's right.
So to block it, and the pool tables are not small, as we all know.
Right.
They take up room, a lot of room.
Yep.
And
we just had an amazing crew, and the cast. We rehearsed, as I said, for 5 days, so the cast, knew it cold. It seemed like every time I knew exactly what the blocking would be, and then I'd realize, oh, no, they have to rack now, or they have to move down to the other end of the table. Of course, you just forget that these little things had to happen, and it's like, oh, God. So, you're just trying, because you want to know exactly what's going to happen when you shoot it. But, people were just, and the ability of this cast to just live in those characters and get it done was amazing.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, Tom.
Thank you.
You prepared for this. You wrote a great script. It's very well cast. Your production values are excellent. And this is the first big film of this year that I am in love with.
Well, that's so kind. Thank you so much.
I've watched. I binged on Saturday. I did 7 upcoming films. On Friday, I did 4. Out of all of them, Double Down South is my front runner. As a favorite film. It's just, it is superb, and it's all those details. The devil is in the details, and you certainly took care of that. So, now what are you going to do with yourself?
I've got a couple other scripts, on the stove right now. So, hoping, once this is out, hoping to get one of those made.
Well,
so got to finish them first, but pretty close. So.
I mean, I don't want to see you disappear from the canvas for too long.
No, I don't want to either. Trey Crowder, Callie Curry, T-Bone Burnett, and I are about to do a podcast. We got to write it first, so I'll be doing that next, and then try to get these movies made.
Oh my God! Well, I have one last question for you, Tom, before I let you go, that I love to ask all Academy Award winners. Where did you put your Oscar for Dead Poets Society?
It's up on a shelf, on a bookshelf in my office.
Not the bathroom, huh?
No, I have a friend who used it as a bathroom door. He had 2. He used one of them as a bathroom doorstop, and the other one was in his office. But no, I don't keep it there. Although I'd see it more often, I guess, if I did.
I asked Michael Caine once about his Oscar, and he goes, I have shelves above my desk, and I have it on the shelf, so when people walk in my office and they see me sitting in my chair, they immediately see my Oscar above my head.
That's funny.
So, Tom, this has been an absolute joy having you on the show. To kick off,
thank you.
This kicks off year 10 for Behind the Lens, actually. So having you on is just absolutely glorious, and I hope we get to do this again in the future.
Me too. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun, and I really, really appreciate your having me.
Oh, thank you, Tom. And you have a great rest of your day, and
okay.
I'll be on the lookout for that podcast, too.
Yes, it'll probably be midsummer, I guess, at this point. But
all right. Oh,
yep.
Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was writer-director Tom Schulman talking about his new film, Double Down South. See it. See it. It's wonderful. You will be able to find it everywhere. Was it the 19th? I think it's the 19th. It's either the 12th or the 19th. My brain is already addled in 2024. What can I say? So that is all the time we have. And yes, we started the year off right and ran over. Okay. Next week we have Andrew Baird joining us to talk about his new film. And then later this month, a filmmaker that I love, haven't spoken to him in a long, long, long time, Joe Maggio will be joining us again. And already, looking ahead into February, that rascally rabbit, Frank Meyer, who's currently in Spain touring with Trading Aces, one of his bands, he'll be back with us in February, live in studio, regaling us with tales of tours. But that is all the time we have. Until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.